Narayanam Namashitam Naram Shiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jyotirat Nashta Prayashu Bhadeshu Nityam Bhagata Sevya Bhagatiyatamashaki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Nigama Kapadurugaritam Param Shukamakaram Mita Dravisamitam Pibata Bhagatam Rashamayare Mahora Hora Shikabhubhavatam Krishna Sadama Bhagate Dhammavini Karonashta Dvishamasha Parana Kodunoritam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinu Bandhu Jigapate Kupisha Gabika Gantara Kantanamostate Jayatam Saruto Pango Mahadir Madir Gati Matsavasha Parambo Javarada Madharma Seaman Rasarasaram Bivamsi Pate Karsan Venersan Herbaka Gopinata Sriyasaram Divyad Vrindara Nikapadramada Srimad Ratnagara Shima Sanastava Shri Shirada Shidagovina Prasadavihi Seva Manushmarami Namo Brahmani Devaya Go Brahmani Taya Chaji Karitaya Krishnaya Govinaya Namo Namaha Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Gururajutam Mangalam Pariri Kaksham Mangaraya Tano Om Narayana Vidmahi Vasudevaya Dhimi Tano Vishnu Prachodhyatahe Om Mahadevi Vidmahi Vishnu Paditadimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodhyatahe Mahalakshmi Namastibhyam Sare Sare Hari Priya Namastibhyam Namastibhyam Dira Tapti Kanchana Gauranga Radha Vindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priya Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tirumane Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nevishesa Sanivari Vaskata Desarani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nice to be back with you all on this Motivational Monday. Got Rob on Zoom. Brent, who gave a talk yesterday at the Sunday Feast in Spanish Fork, and also did the same talk the day prior, Saturday night, in Salt Lake City about the importance of hearing as a means to awaken ourselves up from illusion. And Shali sent me a picture of her new home altar. It's very, very tastefully and attractively done. Congratulations on that. Wish you a lifetime full of worship of Krishna there in your home. John Malik just joined us with a Hare Krishna. Rob, I've got to tell you something. We had a devotee. He's been listening to our podcasts for about 10 years. He's got them practically memorized. And he came all the way from Australia to spend a couple of weeks with us here in Spanish Fork. You might have seen him. His plane arrived in Salt Lake City on Saturday night, and he was able to make it. He Ubered from the airport to the temple, arrived while they were serving the feast, and then Brent brought him down to Spanish Fork. You may have seen him, you may not have seen him, but he told me last night that his favorite thing about the Bhagavatam classes are your takeaways. I said, oh, really? So he really looks forward to your little, the way you, with poetry and humor, you encapsulize the themes of the various morning Bhagavatam classes. Rob told me earlier that he won't be able to make it tomorrow and Wednesday because he's going on a camping trip, but hopefully we'll have some of those takeaways so that Param Purusha, our guest from Australia, will be happy. We do have a parrot screaming on the next level, screaming at the top of her lungs, and I've got 2 doors closed between her and myself, but she's really, really, really screaming loudly, so I can't tell whether that's going to create a disturbance in the next half hour or not. I'll do my best. Seems like my whole life is spent trying to tune out all the various distractions and disturbances that occur. It seems like they don't arise until I begin to speak, and then they come up. But that may be my own paranoid perception, I'm sure. Vaibhavi's jumped on with us, and Britta from Ogden. I'm not sure whether you sold your house or not, Britta, but if you have, I'm sure there's a good story there. I'll look forward to you posting those details on Facebook. And by all means, if you're ever down in this part of the neck of the woods, come and visit us with Alexander and Adrian as well, if they happen to be with you. If you recall, last Wednesday, we talked about the difference between the human body, the human lifestyle, the human consciousness, and that of the animal. And basically, we're all spirit souls, part and parcel of God, full of knowledge. That means we have the potential to dissipate illusion and to stand in the clear noon, so to speak, sunlight of knowledge of God, knowledge of our spiritual selves, and knowledge of our relationship with God. We're spirit, God is spirit, but the difference is he's great, we're small, he's the whole, we're the part. So we make our yoga, we make our yoke, our connection with God through service. But we don't find the animals serving God, they're only serving their senses. So what is the difference then between an animal body and human body? Physiologically, anatomically, chemically, there's very little difference. The animal body is made of the same elements, same chemicals, same components, same organs as the human body. So what is different? What is the advantage of the human body? And the advantage of the human body is that the human being can ask, why am I here? Who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of life? Where am I going to go? Where do I want to go? Where do I want to end up? What's my ultimate destination? The animal can only, because the nature of its senses, intelligence, and body is that it's more opaque. The consciousness has to go through an opaque filter in terms of manifesting itself in this material world. And because of the opacity of the mind and the body and the emotions and the intellect that come as a part of the animal package, one doesn't enjoy the level of light, the enlightenment, to be able to ask the question that beyond the how, why am I here? The animal is filtered to the drastic degree that no animal ever asks why. At least no animal that doesn't have a past history of Krishna consciousness. We have a few examples right before us, for instance, of Gajendra, the example of Bharat Maharaj, who was a deer, and both of them had performed devotional service in their previous lives, and that recollection of devotional service carried over even into their animal bodies. But for the most part, there isn't a single animal present today or in the past that has ever asked the question, why? Why am I here? Is there more to life than the hows? Animal life means asking constantly the how question. It's a hard struggle for existence, 24 hours a day, if you happen to be in an animal or an aquatic or bird's body. Our birds, when I'm carrying them here to there, here and there, and I've had a lot of opportunity to observe the birds, and they really jump. They literally almost jump out of their skins whenever there's a sudden pop or a sudden sound. It means they're conditioned how to defend, how to protect myself, how to either fight a looming, impending, rushing, imminent danger, or how to run or fly or swim away from that danger. The animals are wired to answer the how questions. And in fact, in many ways, they're better at defending themselves. They have more natural defense mechanisms. When you think about it, the body of the human being offers almost no defense against a tiger, against an eagle, against a shark. The only defense we have is in terms of our intelligence. But our bodies are not that well equipped for eating, sleeping, mating, defending. The animals outdo us in all of those areas, but we have the potential to outdo the animals, which just means the prerogative of the human form of life is to ask, why am I here? Now, if you get the human form of life and you never ask that question, then you've never risen to the level of human consciousness. You're still an animal. Yashtu Narayanam Dharam Parobhuna Shamabenam Rishik Sapasandi Bashandi means that he or she is an animal who never inquires as to the meaning of life. The animals have a body just like we do. They have a mind just like we do. They have a soul just like we do. The only difference is that the consciousness of the animal is limited to their body and their body needs. Sometimes the materialistic scientists would have us believe that consciousness is produced, consciousness originates in the brain. And yet the information that we have from the Vedic authorities is that consciousness arises from the soul. The soul is situated in the region of the heart. So whatever consciousness we have from the top of our head to the tip of our toes, that's due to the presence of the soul within the region of the heart. And the brain is just a filtering, just a processing agent, like a computer. And what comes through the brain of an animal is a strong sense of bodily identification. Yashatma buddhi konapiti dehadike svadihi katara yatirta buddhi salite janashu bignishu seva gocharaha. The cow or the donkey thinks of the body as the self. It thinks of the byproducts of the body as one's relatives and friends. It thinks of the place where the body took birth as more or less worshipable. And one who, although having obtained the human form of life, thinks in the same way that the body is the self, the byproducts of the body are one's relatives, the earth from which the body sprung is one's nation and therefore worshipable. Saeva gochara, Janashuva is no better than a cow or an ass. So depending on the body, we're extremely limited in what we can think and the questions we can ask. Or if we're fortunate enough to get a human body, there is some latitude. There is some room that one needn't preoccupy oneself 24 hours a day with the how question, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. One has leisure time, and that leisure time gives one the opportunity to ask the why question. Why am I here? What is the purpose of the human life? Where am I going? What is the perfection of all of my activities? Well, Gajendra, in his previous birth as a king in a human body named Indradumna, a king from the Pandya region of India, was a staunch devotee of Vishnu, but he offended a sage on one occasion. Indradumna was deep in meditation, turned inwardly, full of introspection. He didn't notice the arrival of a great sage named Agastya. Agastya took that as inhospitality and cursed him, that inasmuch as he had not responded with sensitivity and consideration to his guest, that he wouldn't take his next birth in a body which would be dull, unresponsive, and insensitive. Hence it occurred that due to the curse of Agastya, which really, again, was due to no fault on the part of Indradumna. I don't know if this reminds you of anything. We spent 45 sessions on the story of Ambarish. And this should be reminiscent of Ambarish's case. Also, Ambarish committed no offense to the sage Durvasa Muni, but Durvasa Muni took Ambarish's actions as offensive and overreacted and cursed him. This should be reminiscent of that story. Indradumna had no intention of offending the sage. He was simply deep in meditation of Krishna. That also tells us that the curse of Agastya Muni was directly planned by the Lord for the ultimate benefit of Indradumna, and so that we could get this instructive story passed down to us thousands and thousands of years later. It was not an overt fault on the part of Indradumna. It was due to the unavoidable and inscrutable plan of the Lord that the sage took offense at his so-called inhospitality and cursed him to take an animal birth. So what we have here now is we have a soul in an animal's body, but there may be some exceptions. This may be a soul in an animal's body which is not entirely oblivious of the why question. Now, there obviously was some heavy karma that came along with the soul of Indraduma when he entered into the animal body. And so initially, in the beginning of his life, even though he had this credit of devotional service in the past, it did not manifest itself initially. Some who have done devotional service in their previous lives take birth in such a way as everything is very conducive to the continuation of their devotional service. You might say they hit the ground running. They leave one body having advanced 90, 95, 99% toward Krishna, and they take birth in such a conducive circumstance, either in a family of devotees or in a family of aristocratic Brahmins, Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashta Vijayate, that they adopt devotional service. What to speak of from birth? We have the example of Prahlad Maharaj, who was hearing the Bhagavatam throughout the entire period of his gestation. He was picking up where he'd left off 9 months before birth, from the point of conception. What to speak of hitting the ground running at birth? We see that. We see that there's hardly any loss of momentum from one life to another lifetime. And we see that others, they take birth and they don't get the support. They don't necessarily take birth in a conducive environment, but the environment might be neutral. And so eventually, in the course of their life, they hear devotees chanting in the street. They happen to get some prasadam. They come upon a book and start reading. And then the attraction for Krishna consciousness is revived. So there are those who take birth in a very favorable situation, hit the ground running without hardly any loss of momentum. There are those who take birth in a neutral situation, ado shado tado shung to bhajana kriya, but something triggers the recollection or the overall general disposition towards devotional service, which is residual from their last lives. Now, Gajendra fits into neither of those categories. He neither took birth in an atmosphere that was conducive for devotional service, nor did he take birth in an atmosphere that was neutral. He took birth in an atmosphere that was antithetical to devotional service. It was actually contrary to the principle and mood of devotional service. Says that those who are blessed by aristocratic birth, by influence, by power, by wealth, by good looks, by education, tend not to be interested in devotional service. But Gajendra Indraduma didn't just take birth as an elephant, but he took birth as the king of the elephants. And the king of the elephants had the prerogative of having not one, but many wives and many children, and an immensely powerful body. Sometimes people say the lion is the king of the jungle, but the weakest elephant can defeat the strongest lion. You hardly ever see lions being so foolish as to attack an elephant. And Gajendra was not the weakest of elephants. He was the strongest of elephants in a previous age when lifespan and bodily health and purity was at a much higher level than it is nowadays. So he did not appear in a neutral atmosphere. He did not appear in a conducive atmosphere. He appeared in an atmosphere which covered apparently even more completely his latent devotional sentiments. And at the moment our story begins, he's drunk, having drunk the sap of various trees. He's aroused. His libido is in full arousal. He's cavorting with his she queens in a beautiful environment. There's fragrances, there are good edibles. There's the eroticism of him rubbing against them body to body in a watery environment, They are obviously touching him in a provocative way with their trunks and their sounds, which are the love-making sounds. So he's like totally forgetful of any devotional service performed in his past life. If he was born, whatever contrariness that came along with the package of his birth, it's been enhanced, it's been heightened, it's been taken to the extreme to this particular moment. And it's at this moment when he's most in illusion and most forgetful of Krishna that Krishna chooses to send the crocodile. And the crocodile latches with its powerful jaws, it latches onto the leg of Gajendra. Now, at first, he doesn't take it that seriously. It's not that shocking to him. He's the king of elephants. He's used to people being defeated by him. He's probably conquered over many other bull elephants in order to get dominance over the herd. He's used to getting his own way. And what he's not taking into consideration is that at this moment in time, he's not on land where he's strongest. He doesn't have all 4 feet on terra firma, where he's basically indomitable. But he's at a disadvantage having at least 2 of his front feet in the water. This is not the elephant's domain. The elephant does not conquer, dominate within water. The elephant dominates only on land. The crocodile is king in the water. So the king of the land and the king of the water are going to have a tug of war. And the disadvantage that comes to the king of the land is that he's in the water. But at first, the full realization, the full shock of that doesn't come to him. And he's just trying to do his best to shake off the crocodile. It's an annoyance. It's an annoyance, you might say. And he's shaking, but how many thousands of pounds of pressure can the jaws of a crocodile exert? We have these macaws here, and I've heard that a macaw, a little tiny macaw, compared to a huge, gigantic crocodile, can exert 2,000 pounds of pressure in his beak. They never do that, as far as I know. They just use it to pinch a little bit, to send you a message that they're unhappy. But the crocodile, how many thousands of pounds of pressure can the huge jaws of the crocodile exert? And this is a life and death struggle. So the crocodile is not going to let go. If the crocodile lets go, he could be very easily killed and trampled. So having committed himself to that course of action, there's no turning back. So gradually, it comes to Gajendra over the course of eventually what becomes many days of struggle. This goes on day and night for a period of time. And what happens is the crocodile is becoming stronger, more confident, more expectant of success, and the elephant is becoming weaker. And gradually, slowly, it's starting to dawn on Gajendra that on his own, if he continues to struggle as he's been struggling on his own, he will die. He will die. And not only that, he has the realization that Mami Mea Taram Gajam Kuta Karana Grahena Pashena Vida Piam Chitam Yami Parayana. Even though he's surrounded by all of his wives and children, even the other bull elephants whom he's defeated, cast out, they might be even willing. They might have been willing to come to his rescue, but they're actually hoping for his demise. They're hoping that he's killed because then one of them will be eligible to take his position and enjoy his throne. So the other bull elephants who could probably relatively easily wade into the water and gore that crocodile with their tusks or pry him off, they're not willing to help Gajendra. They're envious of Gajendra. They're rooting for the crocodile, actually. And his wives are not willing to risk their lives because they haven't got the tusks with which to fight the crocodile. They're not as strong in terms of bodily vitality. So his wives distanced them from him. Previously, just a few seconds ago, they were declaring their love for him. They were committing themselves to him. They were catering to his every wish. Now they're like, not so sure. Now they're not so sure. It looks like he's no longer the rock solid support that they thought he was. And it comes to Gajendra, the frightening fact that he's all alone. Those who could help him don't want to help him because of enviousness. And those who want to help him can help him because they've got their own babies to concern themselves with. They don't have tusks with which to fight the crocodile. They don't have the bodily strength of a male elephant. So he finds out the harsh truth that he's alone. Now, we all think that we've got supporters, we've got well-wishers, we've got people that'll throw themselves into the breach for us. And at some point, it's going to be most beneficial for us to divest ourselves of that illusion. And it is an illusion that we can be protected, that we could be supported by fallible soldiers. Dea patra kalitadishu atmasanatation prabhata asana pina bhashati. In this world, everybody is destined to be vanquished by time. And yet they think that by surrounding themselves with wife and children and family members and money in the bank and a house with security measures, that some or other, the fate which has befallen every living being since the beginning of time, they will be exempted from it. They some or other think that the entourage of family and friends and relatives will some or other save them at the time of death. That has never happened. That has yet to happen in the history of the world. Fact is that every one of us is alone. And the sooner we realize this, the sooner we'll be able to come to terms with our own mortality and take that course of action by which we conquer over birth, death, disease, and old age. Said, I believe, in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, Eka prabhadita hidvanam sona kushaleta padita bhutadrihananarmaram. Every living being, we come into this world alone. And most people who are not God conscious, they go about their business of accumulating assets and surrounding themselves with protective elements and trying to build the strength of their position, their niche in this material world, only to face death alone. One may be on one's deathbed, surrounded by relatives and children and grandchildren, many of whom, although making a show of concern for their dying father or grandfather, although verbally expressing a desire that they recover, that they come back from death's door, that they not leave them in their hearts, they're thinking, when's the old guy going to kick the bucket? How soon can I claim my share of the inheritance? I can't wait to put what he's left me in my bank account and start enjoying the fruits of a lifetime of his work. We come into this world alone. We cheat and lie and manipulate in the name of relatives, but actually we're doing that alone. And the relatives are not going to share in the karma of the illicit activities which I performed for their benefit. They're going to take the wealth and the comfort and the gourmet food and the palatial residences without accepting responsibility for the crimes that were committed in order to get those amenities. The father, the provider, the head of the family is going to be responsible for 100% of that karma. And then at the end of his life, when it's time for him to leave his body, he does so alone. Far from trying to help him out, far from offering to share in his karma, his so-called relatives and friends are hoping that the sooner he leaves, the better. There's a verse I'm learning, Dharma bhavati rapritam, Dharma vibhaparataram, kechit kevara charam, hanyate anya, hanyate anga apamedasha. A less intelligent person breaks religious principles, departs from the standard of righteousness in order to cheat others in the name of maintaining his family. And after having performed all those criminal activities, the family members who reaped all the benefits of his sinful activities can't wait for him to die. And they are compared, the provider, the father, is compared to a fish in a reservoir of water. And the relatives who simply, they simply suck up the water, which is a life force for the big fish. So having sucked up all the water, there's nothing left to sustain the big fish. So they're like little fish in a tank that sucks up all the water and causes the suffocation of the big fish. Jaladanika jalakaram. So similarly, the friends and members of the family members, they take gifts, they take residential amenities, they take gourmet food, they take fancy cars from their father, their provider, their well-wisher in the name of love, but really all it is thievery. They take from the father and he thinks the more they take, the more they love me. This is the illusion. We come together by karma and by the vicissitudes of fate and destiny. We come together in terms of family, friends, and relatives, just like bits and pieces of debris and driftwood and silt and all come together in the middle of a flowing river. They all come together in the middle of a flowing river, and they sort of clump together due to the influence of the current. But that same current that brought them together will also disperse them in due course of time. So even though one is surrounded by so-called friends and relatives and family members, the reality of the fact is that death can reach right into you can be right in the middle of a clump of friends and families and members. And death is so pinpointedly accurate and so all-pervasive that death can and pluck you right out from the middle of that circle, from the middle of that entourage. None of them can save you, even assuming that they are your well-wishers, even assuming that they do want you to stay with them. They do want you to recover and spend more time with them, even assuming the best of them and their motives. There's absolutely nothing they can do for you at the time of death. Prabhupada gave the example. I don't know if you've ever been to an air show, but in the air show, like at Hill Air Force Base, I think every year they have an air show, thousands of people go. All the planes fly in sync. They're flying at hundreds of miles an hour. And yet one wing may be just 3 inches from another wing. One false move, a hiccup, a little cough, a sneeze could cause one plane to veer into another and have a horrible fireball of an accident. And yet these pilots are so well trained. It seems like 5 or 6 planes or 8 or 10 planes or 3 planes, they're so much in sync. It almost seems like they're one organism. They're all part of one organism. And yet if one of those planes has engine trouble, there is nothing that the other 2 planes can do to save that plane. As soon as one of those pilots has engine trouble, he has to separate himself from the formation so that they don't jeopardize themselves. And he has to figure out how to get his plane safely to the ground. And there's nobody else that can help him. We come into this world alone. We develop our own unique karma. Even though we work, commit sins, and other people enjoy the benefits of our illegal activities, we alone are creating the karma. Others are enjoying, but ultimately the buck stops here. We alone are going to be accountable for our karma. At this point, I think I'll interject my karma song. We shape ourselves, the joys and fears of which the coming life is made, and fill our future's atmosphere with sunshine or with shade. The tissue of the life to be, we weave in colors all our own, and in the field of destiny, we reap where we have sown. Karma is action and reaction. You sow the seed, you face the deed. Whatever you do will come back to you. The law of cause and effect ensures the balance is perfect. Detecting whatever you do, good and bad, it will resurrect. Death is not the end, it's just a bend. Whatever you've done will circle back again. The body may die, but your karma is standing by. You'll be reborn to live and die, continue to suffer and cry. As the air carries the aroma, as the aroma follows the flowers, heat pursues the fire. Your karma will track you as soon as you leave the funeral pyre. Karma is what makes the world go round. It's cause and effect right down there in the ground for those going over and around, up and down, bound by their deeds, drowned by their needs. Is there any purpose to my life on earth? Do I just die and continually take birth? Is there any escape from the pain? Coming back again and again and again and again. Yeah, because you're not the flesh, you're not the mind, eternal spirit designed in the image of Almighty Divine, assigned to a service sublime. Attracted by unselfish action, serving Lord dispassion, acting only for his satisfaction, devoted souls achieve extraction from karmic reaction. Fashioned by it, if you want to burn up your karma, practice the Dharma of pleasing the Lord, fashioned by his hand, acting according to his plan, and never ever come back to this mortal world again. Those are our thoughts, lyrical, poetic thoughts on the law of karma. The good news is, even a slight advancement of devotional service is a permanent asset, a permanent credit in our bank account. And whatever we've done in past lives is there sitting. It has not been voided. It has not been negated. It's there. And when we need it, it's going to manifest itself. Gajendra did not take birth in a pious family or family of Brahmins. Neither did he take birth in a neutral situation where intersecting with devotees in a pleasant way, hearing the music, tasting the prasadam, reading the literature, revived his Krishna consciousness. No, he appeared in a situation, he took a birth which was antithetical, which was against the principles of Krishna consciousness. And yet Krishna was so kind and so merciful upon him that Krishna engineered the circumstances of his life in such a way that at the very peak of his enjoyment, at the very north pole of his forgetfulness of Krishna, Krishna forced him into a position where he realized his situation, where he came to realize that without the help of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could not on his own, with all of his power and all of his wealth and all of his influence and all of his offense, extricate himself from this situation. So at that time, when his life hung in the balance, when he was at a critical point of danger, then the memory of his previous life revived. It's not a specific memory of his having been Indradumna and having inadvertently offended the sage Agash and having gotten cursed. None of those specifics need necessarily have come to the forefront of his consciousness at this time, but it came to him very clearly, unequivocally, that he was alone. And without the help of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he would not be able to save himself from this situation. So what was revived, what came to him in that critical hour, was a sense that, yes, there's more. There's more than power. There's more than wealth. There's more than sensuality. There's more than family and friends and country. There is a supreme creator, a supreme father, a supreme benevolent living being who is in our hearts and who never forgets past service to him, and who will revive the memory of our previous consciousness when we most need it. At that point, Gajendra gave up fighting on his own, and he threw up his arms, so to speak. You might compare the trunk of an elephant with the arms of a human being. He threw up his trunk to the skies, to the heavens. And along with that, he plucked a lotus flower from the nearby, and he offered the lotus to Krishna. He said, Lord, I am small, you are great. I have forgotten my devotional service to you, but if you think there's a chance that I could revive my devotional service and that I could do some service for you in the balance of whatever life I have in the remaining years that I may have left to me, then please rescue me from this crocodile. And at that point, when Gajendra gave up all of his pretensions of wealth and beauty and power and eroticism and surrendered wholeheartedly in supplication, in humility, and in desperation supreme, then immediately the Lord sent his razor sharp Sudarshan chakra and cut the head of the crocodile, which time the crocodile released the foot of Gajendra. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I feel that was a good start to the week, and I appreciate your being with me, Gary. Hare Krishna, Gary. John Malik. If the world is a house, your body is your home. Money is not the destination of life. Thank you, John. Meenakshi Draupadi, praise for our good health. Interesting you should say that, because I got up this morning, I couldn't walk. My knee had locked up. It does that once every 6 months or so. It's just too painful to put weight on my right foot. I remember that happened one time. I was in Los Angeles with one other Indian who was with me to get his green card. He was my assistant. We'd spent the night in Whittier Narrows Park in the motorhome, and we had the job of setting up all the tents and the stage and the exhibits in order to have a festival of colors opening at 11 o'clock. So I got up about 6 o'clock in the morning and I started chanting my rounds, and I found I couldn't walk. It was too painful to walk, to put any weight. I thought, how in the world are we going to do this major festival? We were expecting about 6,000 or 7,000 people. And most of it rested upon my being healthy and mobile. And here I was, couldn't take a single step without experiencing excruciating pain. And my assistant, the Indian fellow who was with me more or less only to get the green card, could not, of course, be relied upon to take a managerial role. And I remember feeling pretty downcast for about 45 minutes there. But fortunately, the pain left. I regained my strength and mobility and was able to, the whole festival was a complete triumph. So the day that started out on the wrong foot literally ended up great. But from that moment, I realized that Krishna is sending me a message. I cannot continue to do these festivals at the age of 70 plus years old. My body is no longer dependable. It's no longer reviable. So from that moment on, and then COVID came. So we've gone from 13 festivals in 4 states, which I did up to the age of 73, now to 3 festivals only in the state of Utah. So thank you for praying for my health. I also, the pain in my leg lasted for 2 hours today. The first time it came, it lasted for a half an hour. And each time it lasts for a little longer. And this time it lasted for 2 hours. So I hope I'm coming to that point like Gajendra of being to rely more and more on the mercy of the Lord. Realize I can't do it alone. To give up my sense of doership and recognize that Krishna is behind every step that I take, every breath that I make, every gesture. So thank you very much for triggering that realization there, Meenakshi. Carmen Andrea V says, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Sukshma says, Hari Bol from who knows what corner of the continental United States. She says she loves this pastime. This is our 4th session on Gajendra, and we have lots and lots of material, lots and lots of realizations. I'm so excited about this series. And we've got Carmen also with another comment. Wow, the amount of effort that goes into your service is incredible. Well, like I said, we're no longer biting off that much of the loaf of bread as we used to when we were in our early 70s. Now we're in our late 70s. The things that we used to do in our early 70s, we can no longer do in our late 70s. Thank you, Brent, for being with us. Thank you, Shali. Thank you, Britta, and Vaibhavi also. Okay, Sundari Priyas also. Oh, we've got a comment from Britta here. She says, my grandparents are getting very close to passing. It's been heartbreaking, but all the lessons I've learned have helped me know this is not their end, and the letting go is just their next step. Wonderful, wonderful. Boy, I sure needed to hear this today, Britta. Thank you so much. Okay, Rob, you have, I hope that you put your phrases in nice poetic, pithy form, because our guest, Param Parush, says it's the best part of the Bhagavatam classes. And especially because you won't be able to do it next Tuesday, tomorrow, and the following day, because you'll be out camping. Have you got some good nuggets for us today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Maybe we should just skip the Bhagavatam class and go right to your little nuggets.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is my nuggets mean nothing without the class? So it's all together. You can't have one. You can't have the takeaways without the substance.
Okay, so there's still use for me yet. That's
far more use for you than for me.
Please share this if you'd be so kind.
Yes. Human birth has the most worth.
I know Param Purush is going to love that one.
Don't be a dog lost in Maya's fog. We face death alone in this material home.
Yep.
When a croc has got your leg, to Krishna you should beg.
Great. I'm wondering about material home. I'm wondering if we can, because the home is the spiritual world.
Material zone?
Yeah, material zone. Why don't we say that zone? How does it go again?
We face death alone in this material zone.
Right. Now I wonder if you could add in home as an alternative, spiritual home. We face death in this material zone as a prompting to go back home, something like that. We face death in this material zone as a prompting to go back home.
Daddy,
I will work on that.
Okay. Yeah. See if you can even fine tune it even more and send it to me in the next few minutes if that's possible. Where are you going camping, by the way?
Just up American Fork Canyon.
Okay. Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Okay, we will see you sometime later. Saturday, I'll be there on Saturday. So maybe I'll see you in Salt Lake City on Saturday. We had a youth concert for those of you who are interested. That's the reason I was actually scheduled to give the talks in Spanish Fork and Salt Lake City this weekend, but I switched with Brent because we were going to have several thousand young people here. And I didn't want Bye-Bye to face it alone in case something would go wrong. It wasn't a Krishna conscious gathering, but it was clean. There was no profanity. There was one guy who was part of a band from Idaho, and the crowd was all clapping and singing along with him. And he forgot the prohibition, and he said, "God damn, you're a good crowd." And everybody went, "Ooh," like. And then he turned red and he realized his faux pas. But other than that little slip, it was a very clean event. It was sponsored by a group called Stand Firm, which is a youth betterment organization, encouraging integrity and hard work and good self-esteem. So excellent values, and they paid us a couple $1,000s for the use of the stage and the hillside. And it was a good crowd. I think probably, I don't know, maybe 1,000, maybe 1,500, all very, very young kids came. Many of them walked into the temple, checked it out. They wandered the grounds, saw the parrots, the fish, the peacocks, and our cat, Madhu, he always works the guests. Whenever there's guests, he always comes up and cops some petting, or a cat was like he died and went to heaven. He was just going from one group of kids to another group of kids, and they were all saying, "Oh, he's so cute," and he would get so many strokes and pets and tickles under the chin, and then he would go to the next group of 4 or 5 and work them, and he was working the crowd all night long. So I'm sure that being on the property and mixing with the animals and visiting the temple was beneficial and purifying to the kids, and it was good financial windfall for the temple as well. Anyway, that's why I didn't go to Salt Lake, but that's why I will be in Salt Lake next Saturday, and hope to see you and get the details, the lowdown on your camping trip. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow for Transcendental Tuesday. More on Gajendra, the elephant who remembered Krishna in the time of danger. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.